to Outside of a Cat, because outside of a cat, a book is a person's best friend, and inside of a cat, it's too dark to read. Everyone gets to write their own stories. My name is James, and my partner in cattery is Jack. I have found an article that was from the University of California, and it's entitled Spoiler Alert, Spoilers Make You Enjoy Stories More, and it was published on May the 24th, 2016. And it's written by Andy Murdock. This time I'm going to provide some commentary. I first want to talk about spoilers and say that I'm not sure whether you enjoy the stories more. For example, the violence in the Game of Thrones series House of the Dragon put me off watching the series 2, and the spoilers associated with the ending of Game of Thrones, if I'd seen them, I wouldn't have wasted my time watching the final episode. In the same way, the spoilers associated with the Witcher books would have been a good thing, because it would have made me avoid spending all the money and wasting the time to get to a crap ending. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, let's see what the University of California is going to dish up for us. And interestingly enough, there's a Game of Thrones actress there. This story is going to be spoiled right from the beginning. But don't worry, according to research by UC San Diego psychology professor Nicholas Christenfeld, spoilers don't ruin a story, they make you enjoy it even more. One more spoiler, in the movie The Usual Suspects, Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze. If you haven't seen it yet, wow, you're going to love it now. Christenfeld's interest in storytelling was sparked by his daughter's elementary school homework assignment. She wrote a story where everyone wakes up in the morning and does one thing, and does another thing, and does another thing, and then goes to sleep, said Christenfeld. I tried to explain to her, no, stories need arcs. There needs to be a challenge, and the person overcomes the challenge or succumbs to it, and then has learned something at the end. But as he was explaining it, he paused to think, does fiction really have to work that way? What makes people enjoy or not enjoy a story? Fiction is a peculiar thing when you stop and think about it, says Christenfeld. People spend enormous amounts of time devoting themselves to completely made-up stories. I became curious about what it is about fictional narratives that attracts people. And another Game of Thrones reference. Enjoying the spoils. If suspense, surprise, and satisfying resolutions are the heroes that save a story, spoilers are the villains that try to, well, spoil everything, or at least that's how they're portrayed. We asked lots of people, do spoilers ruin experiences for you, said Christenfeld. The vast majority of people say yes. If you've ever gone to considerable lengths to avoid hearing who won the big game, or who became the latest dragon snack on Game of Thrones, or who Kaiser Soze really is, it's Kevin Spacey, you're in good company. Intuitively, killing the surprise seems like it should make a narrative less enjoyable. Yet researchers found that having extra information about artworks can make them more satisfying, as can the predictability of an experience. So Christenfeld decided to put spoilers to the test in the most straightforward way possible, by spoiling stories for people. I would just like to add in there this little statement, yet researchers found that having extra information, blah blah blah, that's a very unsatisfactory statement. What research? Where was the research conducted? How many people were in the sample study? You can't just say stuff like that and not back up your source. In the initial experiment, his team had subjects read short stories from various genres. One group simply read a story and rated how much they liked it at the end. The other group did the same. but the researchers spoiled the narrative as if by accident by giving them a short introduction. In this, the classic story in which the woman murders her husband with a frozen leg of lamb, said Kristen Feld nonchalantly as an example. What we found, remarkably, was if you spoil stories, they actually enjoy them more. Kristen Feld repeated the experiment with 3 different genres: mystery stories containing a whodunit moment, ironic twist stories where a surprise ending crystallizes the whole story, and literary fiction with a neat resolution. Across all 3 genres, spoilers actually were enhancers, said Kristen Feld. The term is wrong. And there we have a pretty little graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, blah, blah, blah. Ironic twist, mysteries and mystery stories. Spoiled and unspoiled. Looks pretty even if you ask me. Ironically, a study about spoiling surprise endings had a surprise ending. In retrospect, Kristen Feld thinks he should have seen it coming all along. When people go to see Romeo and Juliet, they don't think, "Don't tell me how it ends," said Kristen Feld. "All's well that ends well, that one ends well." So there isn't any thought with these great works of fiction, knowing the ending is going to ruin them. No one watches a romantic comedy truly wondering if the couple will be happy in the end. With a detective story, you can safely assume the detective will eventually solve the case. The point is, really, we're not watching these things for the endings, said Kristen Feld. I point out to the skeptics, people watch these movies more than once happily, and often with increasing pleasure. The plot thickens. In a follow-up study, and it's from jbplatform.com, so there we've got a little link there, so that's a bit of an improvement from the last time. In a follow-up study, Kristen Feld's team tried a variation on the original experiment to identify how and when spoilers work to enhance creative works. This time, instead of letting readers finish the story, Kristen Feld's team stopped people before they reached the spoiled ending and asked them how much they were enjoying the piece. If the benefits of spoilers comes from simply knowing the ending, you wouldn't expect to see any increased enjoyment in the middle of a yarn. Once again, there was a surprise twist. It turns out that even halfway through a story, you enjoy a spoiled story more before you get to the spoiled ending, said Kristen Feld. To Kristen Feld, this suggests that spoilers help you know the purpose of the overall narrative, so you're able to better incorporate all of the details and plot points to get you to the end. Kristen Feld harkens back to The Usual Suspects, in which Kevin Spacey is secretly Kaiser Soze. There's a picture of that vile creature. We all know he's got a problem with what he gets up to in his personal life. Got up to things in his personal life that were not very presentable, and then claimed to be gay and used the rainbow flag as a cover. Don't like that sort of thing. He deserves to go to jail. If you know the ending as you watch it, you can understand what the filmmaker is doing. You get to see this broader view and essentially understand the story more fluently, explained Kristen Feld. There's lots of evidence that this sort of fluent processing of information is pleasurable. That is, some familiarity with a work of art enables you to enjoy it more. Good, we've got rid of his ugly face. In yet another experiment, the researchers added the spoiler directly into the works. We actually modified these stories a little bit of hubris going in and fixing what John Updike wrote, and it turns out we didn't make them better. Extra knowledge about a work of art makes it more enjoyable. When a spoiler is worked into the story itself, it simply makes for a flawed tale. Does the plot spoil the beauty? If spoiling key plot points improves a story, perhaps the plot itself is simply a distraction that keeps us from enjoying the rest of it. The sensory descriptions, the character development, the satire, the artistry. Spoilers clear away the need to think about the plot and allow you to enjoy the rest of the story more. Knowing that Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze lets you enjoy the clever construction of the usual suspects and appreciate how the director and the screenwriter manipulate the viewer and drop subtle hits along the way. If you're driving up Highway 1 through Big Sur, you know the road really well. You can now peek around and admire the view, the otters frolicking in the surf, said Kristen Feld. But if it's your first time in the road, you have to focus on the twists and turns. The plot is in some ways like a coat hanger displaying a garment, said Kristen Feld. If it's just a crumpled heap of fabric on the floor, you couldn't admire the garment. A plot is just the structure that lets you do the interesting narrative components. Maybe even knowing the ending is useful because it allows you to focus on these other parts or to understand how it's unfolding. Will this finding make people rush out and look for spoilers? Almost certainly not. Despite the fact that most people have experienced a spoiler enhancing their enjoyment of a story, the vast majority of people still think that spoilers ruin stories in some way. In part, this is due to the fact that we can't experience a story for the first time twice. We can't compare the experiences of watching a spoiled and an unspoiled movie, and there's only one chance to watch an unspoiled film. In other words, you can only discover once that Kevin Spacey is actually Kaiser Soze. Well, what did you think of that little article? It's a bit reliant on Kevin Spacey for my liking. I'd prefer they found a different metaphor. He's a bit linked to people of ill repute for my taste. All right, well, this is Outside of a Cat on YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe, and make sure you comment down below. Let us know what you think of this article and tell us about when you had a story spoiled and what happened. And were you happy? And we're not getting paid to promote this story. Alright, we appreciate everyone who watches our videos. Get ready for Jack's romance interviews. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.